He was one of the most recognizable faces in Hollywood history. A kid millions of people still watch every single day on reruns and YouTube clips. And at 31 years old, he was shot dead in a house in the San Fernando Valley over an argument that started with a lost dog and $50. The man who killed him walked free. Stick around, because we'll tell you exactly who and exactly what happened later in this video. But first, because not every Rascals story ends in tragedy, and some of these comebacks might genuinely surprise you. Let's start at the beginning. Jackie Cooper, Jackie. Before he was punching a bully in a boxing gloves short in 1929, Jackie Cooper was just a 3-year-old extra his grandmother dragged along to casting calls so they could both get hired for the price of one kid. That instinct for talent paid off fast. By age 9, Cooper became the youngest person ever nominated for the Best Actor Oscar for 1931's Skippy, a record that still stands today. Cooper only appeared in 15 Our Gang shorts, but he used the platform better than almost anyone. He kept acting through adulthood, then pivoted behind the camera. And if you've ever watched an episode of M*A*S*H, there's a good chance Cooper directed it. He also stepped back in front of the camera one more time, playing Daily Planet editor Perry White across 4 Superman films in the late 70s and 80s. Cooper passed away in 2011 of natural causes, at 88 years old, one of only 2 original Rascals with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Not every child star's story ends the way you'd expect. And that's exactly the theme you need to hold on to, because our next actor's story goes in a very different direction. Mickey Daniels was there from the very first short in 1922, One Terrible Day, the freckled, gap-toothed kid with the infectious laugh who became one of the show's first real breakout stars. He stuck around through 1926, then reunited years later with fellow Rascal Mary Cornman for a spin-off series called The Boyfriends. By the 1940s, Daniels had walked away from show business entirely and retrained as a construction engineer. On paper, that's a stable, sensible second act. But off camera, Daniels struggled for years with alcoholism, and it took a serious toll on his health. He spent his final years largely out of the spotlight, reportedly working as a taxi driver, before dying alone in a San Diego hotel room in 1970. He was 55, and the cause was cirrhosis of the liver, a disease directly tied to his drinking. It's a hard contrast to sit with. The same laugh that opened the very first Our Gang short became one of the saddest footnotes in the franchise's history. Monty O'Grady, Monty. Let's lighten things up, because this next one is honestly one of the most underrated success stories in the entire cast. Monty O'Grady only appeared in about 5 of the earliest Our Gang shorts back in 1922 and 1923. He wasn't a headliner, and he never became a household name the way Alfalfa or Spanky did. But here's the twist. O'Grady just kept working. For the next 7 decades, he became one of Hollywood's most prolific background actors, the guy playing a reporter, a waiter, a bar patron, or a passenger on a cruise ship in dozens upon dozens of films and TV shows, almost always uncredited. If you've watched classic film or television, there's a real chance you've seen his face without ever knowing his name. O'Grady died in 2000 at 84 years old, having quietly built one of the longest careers of anyone who ever appeared in Our Gang. Proof that you don't need to stay famous to stay working. Billy Thomas joined the series in the early 1930s and, over 89 shorts, turned Buckwheat into arguably the most iconic single character in the franchise's history, instantly recognizable decades later, even to people who've never seen a full episode. After Our Gang, Thomas didn't chase Hollywood fame. He took a steady, respectable job as a film technician at Technicolor Corporation and mostly stayed out of the spotlight, occasionally showing up to defend his legacy when impersonators tried to cash in on the Buckwheat name. In June 1979, Thomas's close friend and former co-star Darla Hood died unexpectedly. Thomas was reportedly devastated, telling reporters, "I hate to hear it. It's a shock." And just over a year later, in October 1980, a neighbor found him dead in his home. He'd died of a heart attack at 49. Fellow Rascal Spanky McFarland later said he believed the loss of Darla had broken his friend's heart. We'll come back to exactly what happened to Darla a little later, because that story is one of the 2 we're building toward tonight. George Spanky McFarland, Spanky. Spanky McFarland became the face of the franchise's most popular era. He joined the series at just 3 years old and appeared in 95 shorts over 11 years, more than almost anyone else in our gang history, including the only full-length Rascals feature film ever made, 1930 SIXS, General Spanky. Like a lot of former child stars, McFarlane struggled to find steady acting work as an adult, and he tried a little of everything. Hosting a local TV show in Tulsa, working odd jobs, even running a charity golf tournament for nearly 20 years. He eventually settled into a long, respectable career as a sales manager for Philco Ford. Looking back on his childhood in a 1977 interview, McFarlane said simply, "I have no regrets. When it was over, it was over." McFarlane died of a heart attack in 1993 at age 64, and just months later he received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame alongside Jackie Cooper. But here's a question worth sitting with. Of everyone on this list, McFarlane is remembered as the happiest. So why does the curse narrative around this cast persist at all? Stick with us, because the answer gets complicated fast. Stymie Beard's audition story is legendary. He walked onto the stage, smiled at Hal Roach, and got a 5-year contract on the spot, without even a screen test. He became one of the show's biggest stars through the early 1930s, instantly recognizable in his trademark bowler hat. His adult life took a much rockier path. Beard dropped out of high school and spent years in and out of prison, wrestling with a heroin addiction that reportedly lasted more than 2 decades. But this is where the story turns. Beard got clean in the 1970s and worked to rebuild both his life and his reputation, eventually returning to acting in small roles and speaking openly about his recovery. He died in 1981 at 56 after developing pneumonia following a stroke. More than 1,000 mourners attended his funeral, a turnout that says a lot about how much respect he'd rebuilt by the end. His is genuinely one of the more hopeful stories in this list, even with the hard chapters in the middle. Alan Hoskins holds a record nobody's touched since 105 Our Gang appearances, more than any other cast member in the franchise's 22-year run. He joined the earliest lineup back in the silent era and outlasted almost every one of his original co-stars before finally leaving the series in 1931. His path after Hollywood is one of the most quietly impressive on this list. Hoskins served 5 years in the Army during World War II, then spent decades running physical and mental rehabilitation workshops in California, helping people recover from serious injury and illness. In 1975, he was inducted into the Black Filmmakers Hall of Fame and reportedly said he felt he deserved the honor for his rehabilitation work, not for playing Farina. Hoskins died of cancer in 1980 at 59, not a long life by modern standards, but a genuinely purposeful one.